I always thought the worst betrayal wasn't the one you discover suddenly, but the one that reveals itself slowly, day by day, leaving you alone with your own intuition and fear of acknowledging the truth. It all started with our golden retriever Buddy. He became the unwitting catalyst for what would destroy 22 years of marriage. The 8-year-old dog had always been my companion. Every morning we'd go for a run together in Van Cortlandt Park before the sun rose over snow-covered Riverdale. In December 2024, Buddy started limping on his back leg, and Lily, my wife, decided to sign up for a pet care workshop. She said that as a doctor she wanted to better understand how to help our dog. At the time it sounded logical. My name is Christopher, and at that point I was 53 years old. I worked as a middle manager at a small corporation in Manhattan. Stable work, predictable, without any particular highs or lows. My salary was around $75,000 a year, nothing spectacular for New York, but it allowed us to live comfortably. Lily, my wife, was a gynecologist with a successful practice at a Bronx medical center. She earned significantly more than me, somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000 annually, but it had never been an issue between us. Or so I thought. We lived in a beautiful 4-bedroom house in Riverdale, one of the more affluent areas of the Bronx. The house was worth about $850,000, and we'd paid off most of the mortgage over the years. Our neighborhood was quiet, tree-lined, the kind of place where people walked their dogs at dusk and neighbors greeted each other by name. It felt safe, stable, permanent. I thought our marriage was the same way. February brought not only sharp winds from the Hudson but also changes I initially refused to notice. Lily began declining our traditional Friday evenings by the fireplace with wine and old movies. "Christopher, I have an early surgery tomorrow," she'd say, heading to the bedroom at 8 in the evening. Then came the medical conferences. Every 2 weeks she'd drive to Manhattan, stay in hotels, returning only the next day. "Professional development," she explained. I had no reason to doubt her. She was dedicated to her career, always had been. The Real warning bell came during a conversation with my brother Roger in mid-February. We were sitting in a sports bar on Broadway watching basketball when he suddenly asked, "Chris, is everything okay with you and Lily? She seems absent lately." I brushed it off then, work, stress, patience. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Roger had always been perceptive, more so than me. He'd been through his own divorce years ago and had developed a sixth sense for marital problems. The following week we were supposed to go to dinner with old friends, but Lily canceled our plans an hour before we were set to leave. "Emergency situation at the clinic," she texted. I went alone, feeling awkward among couples holding hands. That's where I talked to Carolina, one of Lily's closest friends. She casually mentioned, "How's Lily's new friend?" She was so enthusiastic talking about him last week at lunch. I felt everything inside me freeze. "What friend?" I asked as calmly as possible. Carolina's face changed. She realized she'd said too much. "Oh, probably someone from work," she quickly corrected herself, but it was too late. Her eyes betrayed the truth faster than her words ever could. I saw the panic there, the realization that she'd accidentally revealed something she wasn't supposed to. That night I couldn't sleep. Lily returned at 2 in the morning, explaining that the surgery had run long. She kissed me on the forehead and immediately went to take a shower. While she was in the bathroom I took her phone, something I'd never done in 22 years. It was locked with a password she'd recently changed. Previously we'd both known each other's passwords, had nothing to hide. Or at least I thought we didn't. The next 2 weeks I lived in a fog of suspicion and self-deception. Part of me desperately wanted to believe I was wrong. Another part was collecting puzzle pieces I was afraid to assemble. I started paying attention to details. New perfume she wore, the way she now held her phone screen down, the coldness in her touch. We hadn't made love in 3 months. When I tried to initiate intimacy, she'd claim exhaustion or headaches or early morning appointments. The excuses were always plausible, always reasonable, but they were adding up to something I didn't want to acknowledge. I found myself doing things I'd never imagined. Checking the mileage on her car after her supposed conferences. Noticing when she'd shower immediately upon coming home, as if washing something away. Watching how she'd smile at her phone, then quickly hide it when I entered the room. These weren't the actions of the woman I'd married, the woman who used to be so open with me, so present in our life together. In March I decided to act. First I checked our joint bank accounts, something Lily usually did. What I saw shocked me. Over the past 8 months, about $45,000 had disappeared from the account. The transactions were labeled as transfers for personal needs, but the amounts were too large and regular. Someone was receiving $5,000 to $6,000 monthly. Some payments went to rent for an apartment in Queens, a neighborhood where we knew no one. I sat at my desk in our home office, staring at the computer screen, going through transaction after transaction. Each one felt like a small betrayal, a little piece of our life together being chipped away. 5,000 here for miscellaneous expenses. 6,000 there for personal matters. The money had our shared names on the account, but only one person was making these withdrawals, and it wasn't me. I contacted lawyer Matthew, whom Roger had recommended. He was a straightforward man in his 60s, with an office near Grand Central Terminal. His office was modest but professional, filled with law books and files from decades of practice. "Christopher," he said, reviewing the bank statements, "this is a classic pattern. But we need evidence of the affair itself to protect your interests in a divorce." The word divorce sounded like a verdict. It made everything real in a way that terrified me. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was the beginning of the end. "What kind of evidence?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Photos, messages, witnesses. Proof that she's been unfaithful. In New York, adultery isn't technically necessary for divorce anymore, but it helps in asset division cases, especially when there's been financial misconduct." Matthew leaned back in his chair, studying me. "How sure are you that she's having an affair?" "I'm 99% sure," I said. "I just need that last 1%. I couldn't hire a private investigator, too expensive and too Hollywood. Instead, I started talking to people. Lily's colleague Rachel worked as a nurse at the same clinic. Over coffee at a small bakery on Arthur Avenue, I carefully steered the conversation toward medical conferences. "Conferences?" she asked, surprised. "Christopher, our clinic hasn't had any mandatory conferences this winter. Maybe Lily was attending something private?" The way she said it, with that slight hesitation, told me she suspected something too. Rachel and I had known each other for years through various clinic social events. She was in her late 40s, practical and honest. I could see her struggling with what to say, loyalty to her colleague warring with sympathy for me. Finally she sighed. "Christopher, I don't want to speak out of turn, but Lily has been taking a lot of personal days lately. More than usual. And she's been different. Distracted. I assumed it was stress, but now that you're asking..." Everything came together at the end of March. I accidentally stopped by the clinic to bring Lily a forgotten lunch. The receptionist smiled. "Oh, Dr. Lily took the day off today. She said she was going to a conference." But I knew the schedule, there was no conference planned. I drove to the Hyatt Place Hotel in Manhattan. That's where she supposedly went for these educational events. The hotel was about 30 minutes from our house in Riverdale, close enough to be convenient, far enough to feel like a different world. For $100, the administrator confirmed that Dr. Lily regularly booked a room. Always for 2 people. The administrator, a young woman who looked uncomfortable with the whole exchange, showed me the reservation history on her computer. Room 417. Every 2 weeks like clockwork. Thursday afternoons, checking out Friday morning. I sat in my car in the hotel parking lot, watching snow fall on the windshield, and felt the world I'd built for 2 decades crumbling. Burst in? Make a scene? No. I decided differently. I needed to be smart about this, methodical. If I confronted her now, in the heat of emotion, I'd lose any advantage I had. I needed a plan. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click like if you enjoy this story. I always read your comments and analyze which stories you like best so that I can create better stories. Thank you. I will continue the story. The next 2 weeks I played the role of the perfect husband. I smiled, cooked dinners, even suggested a weekend getaway with Lily, which she of course declined. "I'm so sorry, honey," she said, touching my arm with what seemed like genuine regret. "I have that conference next weekend, remember? But maybe the weekend after?" We both knew the weekend after would bring another excuse. But all this time, Matthew was helping me prepare documents. We collected all the evidence. Bank statements, Carolina's testimony, hotel confirmations, conversations with Rachel. But I needed the name. Who was he? I found the answer by accident. Lily left her tablet on the kitchen table, and I saw an open Facebook tab. Messages from someone named Tommy. "Can't wait for next Thursday, my queen," he wrote. I opened his profile, a veterinary technician, 28 years old, works at an animal shelter in Queens. The same neighborhood where our money was going. Tommy. A man 25 years younger than me, with tattoos on his arms and a surfer's smile. I looked at his photos, him hugging dogs, smiling at the camera, looking carefree and young. Everything I hadn't been for the last 20 years of corporate routine. He had that effortless charm, that casual confidence that comes from youth and not yet having been beaten down by life. Looking at him, I understood the appeal. He represented everything our marriage had stopped being: spontaneous, passionate, exciting. His Facebook was full of pictures at the animal shelter holding puppies, playing with rescued dogs. There were photos of him at beaches, at concerts, living the kind of life that seemed untethered by responsibilities. And there, buried in his photo albums, I found it, a picture of him with Lily. They were at some outdoor event, a dog show or something similar. Her arm was around his waist, and she was looking at him with an expression I hadn't seen on her face in years. Pure joy. It was dated early February. April brought answers to questions I'd been afraid to ask. I met with Carolina again, this time without Lily. She cried while telling me the truth. Christopher, she met him at that pet care workshop in January. She says he made her feel alive for the first time in years. I told her to stop, but she's in love. We were sitting in a small cafe in Riverdale, far enough from the clinic that we wouldn't run into anyone Lily knew. In love. That word hit me harder than anything else. Not made a mistake, not did something foolish. In love. With a young animal care technician whom she was paying rent for with our shared money. Carolina reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm so sorry. I should have told you sooner, but she's my friend, and I kept hoping she'd come to her senses. Tell me everything, I said. I need to know. Carolina hesitated, then began. She said it started innocently enough. The workshop was about senior pet care, and Tommy was one of the instructors. He was charming, attentive, knew everything about animals. They got to talking about Buddy, and he offered to do a home visit to check on the dog's hip. That first visit, nothing happened. But then Lily started going to the shelter where he worked, volunteering. That's when it started. When did it become physical? I asked, my voice hollow. Late January, I think. She rented him that apartment in Queens in February. Said she wanted to help him out, that he was struggling to make ends meet on a technician's salary. But Christopher, she's completely lost in this. She talks about leaving you, starting over with him. I keep telling her she's being ridiculous, that this is just a midlife crisis, but she won't listen. I decided not to confront Lily directly. Instead, I played the long game. Through Matthew, I quietly began separating our assets, transferring money to separate accounts, documenting every expense, preparing for the inevitable. Our house in Riverdale worth $850,000 was in both our names, but I knew that under New York State equitable distribution laws, we'd split everything equally. This wasn't about the money. This was about something more. I spent hours with Matthew going over every detail. New York was an equitable distribution state, which meant marital property would be divided fairly, though not necessarily 50-50. The house, the bank accounts, the investments, even my pension from work, everything would be on the table. Matthew explained that the money Lily had transferred to Tommy could potentially be considered marital waste, which might work in my favor. But we needed to document everything carefully. The key, Matthew said, is to show a pattern of deception and financial misconduct. The affair itself is one thing, but using marital funds to support her lover, that's something else entirely. We need to build an airtight case. In May, I did what Lily never expected. I gathered all the evidence, financial documents, hotel booking photos, colleague testimonies, and sent an official complaint to the New York State Medical Board. Not because of the affair, they didn't care about doctors' personal lives. But using professional conferences as cover for personal affairs, potential violations of patient confidentiality by discussing work matters with a non-professional, using professional status to get hotel discounts under the guise of medical events, that was serious. The complaint was carefully worded, focusing on professional ethics rather than personal matters. I detailed how Lily had claimed to be attending continuing medical education events, potentially claiming CME credits for time spent on personal matters. I noted the pattern of hotel bookings that coincided with claimed conferences that didn't actually exist. I included statements from Rachel confirming that the clinic had no record of these conferences. It was thorough, professional, and devastating. Simultaneously, I sent a detailed report to the administration of the medical center where Lily worked. Not as a complaint, but as a concern regarding possible conflict of interest and financial irregularities. I documented every dollar she transferred to Tommy from the joint account. Technically, this was misappropriation of family funds. I framed it as a concerned spouse bringing attention to potential ethical violations that could expose the clinic to liability. But the real blow I delivered differently. I created a detailed dossier, bank statements, photographs, timelines, and sent it to 15 of Lily's closest colleagues from the clinic. Not as gossip spreading, but as clarification of the situation in connection with the upcoming divorce. Professional, cold, with facts. Each packet was identical, printed on good paper, organized in folders. It looked official, serious. It looked like the truth. I included a cover letter explaining that I was in the process of divorcing my wife and wanted to ensure that her colleagues understood the reasons, particularly given the professional implications. I noted the financial transfers, the fake conferences, the breach of trust. I didn't editorialize or express emotion. I just laid out the facts and let them speak for themselves. When Lily finally found out, it was early June, she came home in hysterics. "What did you do?" she screamed. I was called into management. The medical board started an investigation. Everyone at work knows. Her face was red, mascara running down her cheeks. She looked nothing like the composed, professional doctor who left for work every morning. She looked destroyed. I sat in the chair by the fireplace, Buddy lying at my feet. The dog sensed the tension and pressed closer to my leg, offering silent comfort. "I did what I had to do," I answered calmly. "Protected myself and my reputation. You used our joint money to support a lover. You lied about professional conferences. You destroyed 22 years of marriage. Christopher, I can explain everything." Her voice trembled. She collapsed onto the couch, her whole body shaking. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I felt so alive with him. You don't understand what it's like being with someone who actually sees you, who's excited to spend time with you." "Don't," I interrupted, my voice harder than I'd ever used with her. "Don't try to make this about me not understanding. You made choices. You chose to lie, to steal from our accounts, to destroy everything we built together. And now you're going to face the consequences of those choices. Matthew already filed for divorce. You'll get your half of the house, half of what's left in the accounts. Buddy stays with me. It's through him you met your lover, so there's a certain irony, isn't there?" I kept my voice steady, unemotional. I'd practiced this moment in my head 100 times, and I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down. "The accounts?" She looked confused for a moment, then understanding dawned. "You froze the accounts." "I protected what was left of our assets, yes. After you transferred $45,000 to your boyfriend, I thought it was prudent." I pulled out a folder from beside my chair. "Here's a copy of everything I sent to the medical board, your employer, and your colleagues. You should probably review it. Your lawyer will need to see it too." The next 3 months were a legal nightmare. Lily hired an aggressive attorney who tried to argue that I'd exaggerated the situation with the medical board, that I'd engaged in a malicious campaign to destroy her career. But the facts were on my side. Her lawyer, a sharp woman named Elizabeth Chen, fought hard, but there wasn't much she could do against the documented evidence. The court ordered standard 50-50 asset distribution. Lily received about $90,000 cash and half the value of the house after its sale. I got the same, plus Buddy and my peace of mind. The house sold in August to a young family with 3 kids. Walking through it one last time before the closing, I felt an unexpected sadness. This had been our home for 18 years. We'd painted these walls together, planted the garden, chosen every piece of furniture. Now it belonged to strangers, and all those memories would be overlaid with someone else's life. But the most interesting part began after the divorce. Roger called me in August, laughing. "Chris, did you hear? Carolina says Tommy disappeared." It turned out the young veterinary technician wasn't as in love as it had seemed. When the money ran out, when Lily lost half her assets and faced professional problems, Tommy suddenly realized they needed a break. He blocked her number, moved out of the apartment she'd been paying for, and started a relationship with another woman, the owner of the animal shelter where he worked. "Are you serious?" I asked, though I wasn't really surprised. "Completely." Carolina said. Lily's devastated. Turns out the guy was more interested in the lifestyle she could provide than in her. The shelter owner is loaded. Her family owns a chain of veterinary clinics across New York. Tommy's already moved in with her. I should have felt vindicated, but instead I just felt tired. Well, I guess he found someone who can better support his lifestyle. "Karma's a bitch," Roger said cheerfully. "Hey, you want to grab dinner this weekend? Bring Buddy. We can go to that place with the outdoor seating." Lily called me in September. The first time in 3 months. "Christopher, I made a mistake. I lost everything." Her voice was empty, hollow in a way I'd never heard before. It was the voice of someone who'd gambled everything and lost. The medical board hadn't revoked her license, but they'd issued an official warning. The medical center had asked her to leave, a euphemism for firing without scandal. She'd found a new job at a small clinic in New Jersey where they paid half as much. "I'm working 60 hours a week now," she continued when I didn't respond. "The clinic is in Newark and it's nothing like where I was before. Most of my patients are uninsured and the facility it's not what I'm used to. And Tommy, he won't return my calls. I saw on Facebook that he's with someone else now. Someone younger, richer. He used me, Christopher. He never loved me. He loved what I could give him. I could have felt satisfaction. Could have said, 'You got what you deserved.' But honestly, I just felt empty. 'Lily,' I said quietly, 'I don't want you to suffer. I just wanted you to understand the consequences of your actions. You didn't just destroy our marriage. You destroyed trust, respect, everything we'd built together over 2 decades. And for what? For someone who only wanted your money?' 'I know,' she whispered. 'I know, and I have to live with that now. But Christopher, I need you to know, I did love you. I still do, in a way. I got lost. I started feeling invisible in our marriage, like we were just going through motions. And when Tommy paid attention to me, when he made me feel young and desirable again, I couldn't resist. I'm not making excuses. I know what I did was unforgivable. I just wanted you to know it wasn't because you weren't enough. It was because I wasn't. Lily, I was married before, 6 years, a long time ago. That marriage ended because we were too young and foolish. Our marriage ended because you chose an illusion over reality. I don't know which is worse." I paused, looking down at Buddy, who was watching me with concerned eyes. "But here's what I do know. You made your choices and now you're living with them. That's not my fault and it's not my problem to fix." She cried. I listened for a few seconds, then quietly hung up the phone. It was one of the hardest things I'd ever done, but it was necessary. Some bridges needed to stay burned. It's now mid-November. I still live in a small apartment in the Bronx. We sold the Riverdale house in October, split the money. The apartment is nothing special, a 1-bedroom in a decent building with good security. It's not the house I'd lived in for nearly 2 decades, but it's mine and that matters. Buddy adapted better than I did. He's happy as long as we're together. Every morning we run in the park, watching autumn leaves wash away in the rain, watching the city wake to a new day. The running helps. It gives me time to think, to process everything that's happened. Buddy trots beside me, occasionally stopping to sniff something interesting, and for those 30 minutes life feels simple again. Just a man and his dog, nothing complicated, no betrayals or lies. Roger often asks if I regret what I did. About the medical board, about the reports to administration, about sending the dossiers to colleagues. No, I always answer. I wasn't seeking revenge. I just made sure she'd answer for her actions the same way I would have if I'd done the same thing. And I believe that. The consequences Lily faced weren't because I was vindictive. They were the natural result of her own choices. Still, Roger said last week over beers, you really scorched earth on this one. I mean, the medical board? That's career-affecting stuff. She used her professional status as cover for an affair, I replied. She claimed to be at medical conferences while she was in hotel rooms with her lover. She potentially discussed patients with someone outside the medical field. Those are real ethical violations, Roger. I didn't make them up. I just made sure the right people knew about them. Last week I accidentally saw Carolina at the grocery store. She told me that Lily now lives in a small studio apartment in Jersey City, works 60 hours a week trying to rebuild her reputation. Tommy married his new girlfriend, that shelter owner. Apparently she's wealthy, and her family owns a chain of veterinary clinics. He traded up in his mind. From a disgraced gynecologist to an heiress. It was almost funny in a tragic way. How do you feel? Carolina asked carefully. She looked uncomfortable, caught between loyalty to her friend and sympathy for me. I thought about it, petting Buddy, who was patiently waiting by the cart. I feel free, I finally answered. For 22 years I built a life with someone who, as it turned out, wanted something else. Now I can build a life for myself. And it was true. The weight I'd been carrying for months, the constant knot in my stomach, had gradually loosened. I was starting to feel like myself again. Carolina nodded slowly. She asks about you sometimes. Wants to know how you're doing. I think she still has feelings for you, if that matters. It doesn't, I said more firmly than I felt. What she feels now doesn't change what she did. Actions have consequences and she's living with hers. I hope she can rebuild her life, genuinely. But it won't be with me in it. I don't know what's next for me. Maybe I'll meet someone new. Maybe I'll stay alone. But I know one thing. I'm no longer living in an illusion. I'm living in reality, where trust has a price, where actions have consequences, where everyone answers for their choices. And maybe that's the most important lesson from all of this. You can't control what other people do, but you can control how you respond. You can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to take back your power. Sometimes, on cold evenings when Buddy sleeps at my feet and the wind howls from the Hudson outside the window, I think about those 22 years. About my first marriage that ended due to youth. About the second that ended due to betrayal. And I think, was it worth it? Could I have changed anything? The answer is always the same: no. We can't change other people. We can only choose how to react to their actions. I chose not to be a victim. I chose to make Lily understand. Every action has a price. Was it revenge? Maybe. Was it justice? Probably. Did it help me? I'm still looking for that answer. But when I look at Buddy, at his loyal eyes, at how he trusts me unconditionally, I understand, there are things that don't change. There's loyalty, there's honesty, there's love without conditions. And if a person can't give you that, maybe a dog is a better life companion. Matthew called recently. The medical board closed the case regarding Lily with an official warning in her file. It won't destroy her career, but there will always be a stain there. Rachel wrote that Lily's former colleagues still discuss what happened. Reputation is a fragile thing, especially in the medical community. One mistake, one breach of ethics, and people remember. They always remember. You did what you had to do, Matthew said when he called with the update. She'll recover eventually. Her license is intact, she has a job, even if it's not what she had before. But she'll always have that warning in her file, and that will follow her throughout her career. Every time she applies for a new position, every credentialing process, it'll be there. I know, I said. I'm not proud of it, but I don't regret it either. You shouldn't regret it. She made her choices and you responded appropriately. That's all any of us can do. And me? I'm just living. Working, running with Buddy, occasionally meeting Roger for beer. Building a new life from the fragments of the old. We meet at a place near Yankee Stadium, drink local craft beers, talk about sports and work and everything except my failed marriage. It's comfortable, normal, a reminder that life goes on even after everything falls apart. And maybe that's the best revenge of all, simply being happy without the person who betrayed you. Not wallowing in anger or bitterness, not obsessing over what happened, but moving forward and building something new. Every morning when I wake up in my apartment, when Buddy greets me with his tail wagging, when I make coffee and look out at the city waking up, I feel a sense of peace I didn't have in the last years of my marriage. It's not the life I planned, but it's honest and it's mine. Last month I even went on a date. A woman from work, someone in the accounting department. Nothing serious, just coffee and conversation. It felt strange talking to someone new, presenting myself as single after so many years of being married. We talked about work, about the city, about our lives. She'd been divorced too, understood the complexities of starting over. We didn't make plans for a second date, but we didn't rule it out either. It felt like a beginning, tentative and uncertain, but a beginning nonetheless. The thing about betrayal is that it changes you. You become more cautious, more guarded. You question things you would have accepted without thought before. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal easily or completely. But maybe that's not entirely bad. Maybe being a little more careful, a little more protective of yourself, is a form of wisdom earned through pain. I started therapy too. Something I probably should have done months ago, but I was too proud or too stubborn or too something. My therapist, Dr. Williams, is a patient man in his 50s who reminds me a bit of my father. We talk about the marriage, about the betrayal, about my response to it. He doesn't judge what I did, sending the complaints to the medical board, informing her colleagues. He says everyone processes betrayal differently, and as long as I don't regret it, that's what matters. Do you regret it? He asked in our last session. I thought about it for a long time. No, I finally said. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my marriage ended the way it did. But the actions I took? No, I don't regret those. They felt right at the time and they still feel right now. Then you have your answer, he said simply. Buddy is sleeping on the couch next to me as I write this. He's getting older. That limp that started all of this has gotten a bit worse, even with the medications and supplements the vet prescribed. But he's still my companion, still greets me with joy every time I come home, still looks at me with those trusting eyes that seem to say everything will be okay. And maybe it will be. Maybe this is what moving on looks like. Not dramatic changes or grand gestures, but quiet moments of peace. Morning runs in the park. Coffee in a small apartment. A dog's unconditional love. Work that pays the bills. A brother who checks in regularly. The possibility of new connections, new relationships, new beginnings. I saw Lily one more time about a month ago. It was completely by accident. I was walking Buddy in a park near my office, and she was there with a small dog I didn't recognize. She looked thinner, tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. When our eyes met, she froze. For a moment, I thought she might turn and leave, but instead, she walked toward me. "Christopher," she said softly. "How are you?" "I'm okay," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "You?" "Managing." She looked down at Buddy, who was wagging his tail, happy to see her despite everything. "Dogs are like that, they forgive easily, don't hold grudges." "He looks good. You're taking good care of him." "I always did," I said, perhaps more sharply than I intended. She flinched. "I know. I'm sorry, Christopher. For everything. I know that doesn't mean much now, but I am. I was selfish and stupid, and I threw away something precious for something that was never real." I wanted to be angry, wanted to throw her apology back in her face. But looking at her, at what her choices had reduced her to, I couldn't find the energy. "I accept your apology," I said finally. "But it doesn't change anything. You made your choices and I made mine. We're both living with the consequences now." "I know." She bent down to pet Buddy one more time. "Take care of yourself, Christopher. You deserve to be happy." Then she walked away, her small dog trotting beside her, and I watched her go. It felt like closure, though not the dramatic kind you see in movies. Just a quiet ending to a chapter that had already been written. Buddy looked up at me and I smiled down at him. "Come on, boy. Let's go home." Thank you for watching this video. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.